Hello. Hi, everybody. How are you? I hope that those who celebrate the high holidays ate enough honey and apples for all of us, and I hope that your fast was not too taxing. So thank you so much, Recliner, and thank you, Dee. Thank you, everyone who got us over 1,000. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. So the other day, I went to see a show. I went to see the Psychedelic Furs and the Jesus and Mary chain. And much to my surprise and delight, the show was sold out, which was great. You know, it gives me hope that these bands will continue. So it was a whole evening, a full evening of what I hoped would be a great nostalgia kick. But much to my displeasure, hello, my love. Hello, my darling man. Hi, IDGAF. I did not get as much nostalgia as I would have liked. The Furs were, hi Breeze, the Furs were very thin on nostalgia, on hits. I mean, we heard The Ghost in You and Pretty in Pink and all that, but not Into You Like a Train, not Sister Europe, not a lot of the other things that I would have liked to have heard. And the same thing with the Jesus and Mary chain. I mean, everybody kind of hung on until the end to hear Just Like Honey, which is what everybody came to hear. So I did not leave feeling entirely satiated nostalgia-wise. I think that bands need to be a little bit more realistic about who their audience is. When you have a group of boomers and Xers in an audience, and they go to see these bands that they used to dance to at the clubs and listen to on the radio and buy the records and the cassettes and the DVDs or the CDs, and all the merch, and get into so much 30, 40 years ago. You want to hear more of the hits. I'm sorry, guys. Richard Butler, you are an amazing frontman. You were one of the greatest frontmen of the 1980s, and you're still a great frontman. Don't get me wrong. Keep the new stuff down to a minimum, please. All right? It's good, and it sounds like the Furs, but when we go to see you guys, we want to hear exactly what you would expect. Probably all the songs that you've played about 100,000 times. Thank you, Stella. And you're probably sick of playing them, but just as a reminder, you know who knows how to fan service? The Eagles. You know what they did during the Hotel California tour? They opened with Hotel California and they closed with Hotel California. They played it twice because they know their audience. And they know their audience is there to hear the hits. Severn Bridges Road, Peaceful Easy Feeling, some of Don Henley's music, his solo music, Life's Been Good by Joe Walsh. They know exactly what the audience is there to listen to. If you recorded an album in the past 10 years, we don't care. We want to hear the old stuff from the 70s and 80s. All right. We want to hear Boys of Summer. We want to hear all that shit. Okay. That's my advice. It looks like after opening weekend, the Joker box office plummeted 82%. It is officially a giant, massive flop. It's done, you guys. I was going to go see it at the theater next week. And then I changed my mind when I saw it was 2.5 hours. And I thought, I don't want to sit in a theater for 2.5 hours if the movie is as bad as everyone says it is. I'll wait for it to come out on streaming. Hi, Lilith. I was going to offer you guys reviews of The Penguin on HBO and the latest movie version of Salem's Lot, but I didn't watch them. So I don't have it. I'm sorry. I started watching a great documentary series on Netflix called Mr. McMahon about Vince McMahon. Apparently, thank you, ATX. Hello, everybody. It's so good to see you. Apparently, the docuseries did not turn out to Vince McMahon's liking, so you know it's good. I am loving this series, Mr. McMahon. It is brilliant. It's on Netflix. Watch it. I'm going to finish watching it when I get out of here later. And I have a few hours. I can go up to the attic and I can stretch out and I can watch those shows. All right. Hello, stars. Hello, Emrys. Hello, everybody. You watched the original Salem's Lot for the first time, ATX. Jerusalem's Lot was one of my favorite Stephen King short stories. Salem's Lot scared the fuck out of me. And I was hoping that there was going to be a really good remake of it, because one of the complaints of the movie is that it's too short, that you cannot cram that much action into a 2-hour movie, just shy of 2 hours, and that it really should be a miniseries like the original one was. Listen, I am hoping at this point that they do remakes of everything. I want a remake of, what was it that I wanted a remake of? Not Pet Sematary. How many times are they going to remake that? And I loved that book, by the way. I was just thinking about it and it just slipped my mind. I would love a remake of Thinner, because I thought that the movie that they made was horrible. I would love a remake of Needful Things. That was a book that I also really enjoyed. So, hi, Amber Chick. Good to see you. All right. Now, I am not going to keep on talking about things I didn't watch. I'm supposed to be here to do reviews, not tell you what I didn't review. All right. Now, this was the first, and the Thinner movie was terrible, ATX. It was terrible, and the book was so good. I would love for them, if they haven't made a movie of it already, I would love for them to make a movie of Quitters, Inc. As a matter of fact, all the stories in Night Shift, which was his first short story collection, The Mangler, Gray Matter, I think it's called, The Lawnmower Boy or The Lawnmower Man. A lot of them have been made into movies, and the movies have been horrible. I would like for all of that slate to be wiped clean and to start over again and to make really, really good remakes like they did with It, which was incredible. It was excellent. All right. So this year, 2024, marks the first high holidays that I have spent without a member of my mother's family, my mother, my aunt, or a relative. So it was a very lonely high holidays. And there was not much that I did. There's not much I usually do, except for every year, the tradition was I would go to my mom's apartment or my aunt's apartment, and then when they moved in together, their apartment, and then my mother died, and then I would go see my aunt. So this is the first time in my life that I haven't had a relative's home to go to for the high holidays. And that made me salty and put me in a bad mood, so I thought I was going to take it out on somebody who deserves it. Now, recently, Clara, who is now being exposed and dragged from pillar to post over bankruptcies, somebody discovered that she had taken out a mortgage at some point, all the lies, all the grifts, and all of that. Hey, Anna, how you doing? Clara has had a lot to say about me, and she's had a lot to say about Negs. And I wanted to show you something. I want to show you a still of what a woman who openly and freely criticizes other people's appearances looks like. Who's this? What, may I ask, what is this? What is that? Look at these legs. Look at the size of these legs, but look at this ass. Take it all in. Hey, John. Kalari. Remember when you called Negs the Hunchback of Connersville? Remember that? Hey, Kalari, did you know that my mother had scoliosis? Did you know that my mother also had very, very advanced arthritis? Did you know that? Did you know that over the course of her life, towards the end of her life, she shrank a good 2 to 3 inches because of her scoliosis and her arthritis? Now, here's the thing. Negs and my mother didn't ask to be born with curvature of the spine or degenerative arthritis. This was not something that they did to themselves. You want to make fun of people's deformities? What the fuck do you call that thing on the back there, that shelf ass? That's very much like Amber Lynn's shelf ass. I wonder if you've ever called her out for her shape. Calorie, you did this to yourself. This is your fault that you look this way. Negs and my mother were born with issues of the spine. And you think that that's fair game? No, you know what's fair game is the fact that you ate yourself to the point that you weighed as much as a grizzly bear. And you did it to yourself. And then, because you felt so shitty about yourself, you decided that you were going to go on the attack and attack other people. This doesn't surprise me. This is why you fit in with the support group so well. I actually do need to check my notes. Hang on. I actually do have notes, believe it or not. Well, not really notes. I Googled it. I believe that at her heaviest, she weighed as much as a tiger. She weighed more than a female lion and just shy of what an adult male lion weighs. And she did it to herself by trying to eat herself to death. And that's how she ended up with that ass. But sure, she wants to turn her ire on people who had no control over anything that they were born with. An actual disability. This, what you're seeing in front of you, is not a disability. It isn't. That's gluttony. That is gluttony. And you know, I was feeling a certain type of way, especially because knowing that my mother had scoliosis and knowing that my mother had arthritis and knowing that she got smaller as she got older because of this, of the curve in her back. And thinking about Calorie and how Calorie ran a fundraiser, another one of her 1,000 rip-off GoFundMes, to try and get her mother out of her home. And all I was thinking over the weekend was, I don't even know what I would give, what I have of value, anything. Money, an organ, a limb, anything, to have my mother back for 24 hours. What I would give to be able to talk to my mother again. What I would give to be able to see her. Not running a GoFundMe to get rid of her. To pawn her off on relatives. Imagine going to the internet to ask strangers for money so you could get rid of your own mother. But this is exactly why, again, why she relates so much to Sam and Yaba, who also had 2 useless drunks who didn't raise them. Gave them away, turned them over to a relative, threw them in the garbage. I don't know what they did with them. But this is how you can make the distinction between people who had loving parents and people who didn't. People who hate their families and who grew up with no guidance, no parental love, end up in the support group or the support bodega. That's where they end up. Those of us who loved our parents, those of us who do love our parents, even to this day, look on that behavior and we don't understand how anyone could do what they do until we stop and think, well, of course they're calling people's mothers because they don't have mothers of their own to talk to. Because their mothers gave up on them. Their mothers threw them away. Their mothers cast them out. Sent them to the Turnabout Ranch. Sent them to live with distant cousins, uncles, relatives, whatever. Got rid of them because they chose alcohol over their own kids. Because they were unfit. And then those are the bitches who want to talk about my mom, about my relationship with my mother, about my relationship with my aunt. They want to go on their channels and gossip about my relationship with my aunt and talk about whether or not I mourned sufficiently or what the circumstances of her death were and all that. And they want to monetize all of that and they want to say that it makes me look bad. No, it doesn't. So, anyway, it doesn't go away. 7 years ago. 7 years ago. I have a piece of furniture. It's an armoire in storage. And I don't know what to do with it because it's full of my mom's and my aunt's clothing. Their sweaters, their gloves, their handkerchiefs, all those lady things that they kept from like the 1950s, 60s, and so on, that all smell like those sachets that ladies used to put in their drawers. Thank you, Recliner. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. And I don't know what to do with those things. I mean, it's time to separate myself from those things, but I'm not ready. Even after all these years, I'm not ready. I would never dream of figuring out a scheme to ask strangers on the internet for money to get rid of my mother. What a monstrous thought. Clara, you're a monster. You're a monster. You look the way you do because you couldn't stop eating, and that is your fault. Oh, fucking well. So you decided to do what? Turn outwards and expect the entire world to support you? Turn outwards and start insulting other people's parenting, other people's appearances? Thank you, Amber. Thank you for joining. It's good to have you here. Thank you so much. So, at some point, that armoire is going to come out of storage. And I may never give those clothes away. I may keep them forever. I wouldn't even know how to give them away. Because then you would have to presume that somebody else deserves to wear them with their scent and everything. No. I can't do it. I can't do it even after 7 years. My aunt died a year ago and I can't do it. I had to have somebody who was a friend of hers come through while I wasn't there and clear out her closet. But I kept those little cardigan sweaters and everything that are in the armoire. That's the difference between you and me, Kalari. Anyway, I thought that we would take a look at... Well, you wouldn't know what it's like to have a mother that loves you either, Jan, right? You wouldn't know what that's like. You wouldn't know what that's like. So, I mean, no wonder you hang out in that corner too. It's all motherless and fatherless behavior, what you're seeing. And I don't like racists in my chat, Jan. Goodbye. Yeah, she's a cunt. She always has been. Always has been. All right. All right. Now, I wanted to play you guys something because this across the transom, and it really knocked me for a loop. And I wanted us to watch this because there's going to be a little bit of talk about education today, and this is a sad story, all right? But we are going to have an uplifting story following it because I don't want anyone to leave feeling depressed. And then at the end, we're going to have a fabulous, shady video about a remodel gone horribly wrong. So let's check this out. All right. This is absolutely amazing. It has to do with the Baltimore school system. And I thought we would give it a listen because I got to say, I wasn't shocked necessarily, but I was taken aback. Let's put it that way. Let's listen.
An alarming discovery out of a Baltimore City high school where hundreds of students are failing.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, we found a student who's passed 3 classes in 4 years and is ranked near the top half of his class.
We not letting none of this get the best of us. All right? Be strong, son. We got this.
He's stressed, and I am too. Like, I told him I probably will start crying. Like, my son is, I don't know what to do for him.
This coming June is when Tiffany France thought her son would receive his diploma.
And I'm just trying to fight. He like, Mom, what was all this for? What did I do this for? Like, don't he get a chance? Do he get a chance?
But after...
And I love the fact that the mother is here bellyaching about the fact that her son has flunked out of high school and is now going to have to go back and start in 9th grade, apparently. And he's playing a video game, and she's absolutely shocked. She doesn't understand, how could this have happened? Well, maybe, madam, the answer is in this still, right here. Let's continue.
After 4 years of high school, this mom just learned her 17-year-old has to start over. He's been moved back to 9th grade.
Why would he do 3 more years in school? He didn't fail. The school failed him.
Oh.
The school failed at their job. They failed. They failed. That's the problem here. They failed. They failed. He didn't deserve that.
France's son attends Augusta Fells Savage Institute of Visual Arts in West Baltimore. His transcripts show in 4 years, he has passed just 3 classes.
3 classes in 4 years, but he was promoted. He kept on being promoted until he became a senior. And now they're telling him he has to go back to 9th grade. There is so much failure in this story. It goes across the board. Everybody failed here. The kid failed, the mother, the school, everybody. Everybody is to blame here. You can't, and it drives me crazy when I see one party pointing the finger at the other and saying it's your responsibility. No, everybody failed here.
Earning 2.5 credits, which places him in 9th grade. But France says she didn't know that until February. She has 3 children and works 3 jobs.
Okay, you didn't know that until January. Have you never checked your son's report cards? Never? You've never checked a report card? Never. And the school never contacted you about this? Okay. I don't believe it, but let's continue.
She thought her oldest son was doing well because even though he failed most of his classes, he was being promoted.
Oh, okay. So you think that somebody is doing well when they fail all their classes, but they're being socially promoted. How is failing every single one of your classes, save what, 2, in 4 years, doing well? How does that work? Let's continue.
His transcripts show he failed Spanish 1 and Algebra 1, but was promoted to Spanish 2 and Algebra 2. He also failed English 2, but was passed on to English 3.
Okay.
I'm just assuming that if you are passing, that you have the proper things, to go to the next grade. And, the right grades, you have the right credits.
As we dig deeper into her son's records, we can see in his first 3 years at Augusta Fells, he failed 22 classes.
Wow.
And was late or absent 272 times.
Okay. Failed 22 classes and was absent or late 272 times. And you want me to believe that the school never notified you. First of all, they did, okay? Because a report card was issued. You just didn't look at it. Or you did because you knew he was failing. But you thought, oh, okay, well, as long as they keep on shoving him through the pipeline, then what's the problem? Absent or late 272 times. So we've got a combination of not doing the work, absolutely insane levels of truancy, and, but how could this have happened? All right, let's continue.
But in those 3 years, only one teacher requested a parent conference, which France says never happened. No one from the school told this mother her son was failing.
I'm sorry, but yes, they did. The administration, in the form of a report card, let you know that kid was failing. Sometimes I really wonder to myself, why do people even have children? Why do they do it? What is the point? If all you're going to do is say here, and we've seen a lot of video clips on TikTok and other places of teachers who say that parents will hand their kids over. I'm reading more and more articles about parents who are turning their kids over to kindergarten or preschool, and the kids are not potty trained, and they don't know how to speak properly. And the parents, now, how old are kids in preschool and kindergarten? 4 and 5 years old, right? And they're blaming lockdown. They're saying, oh, it's because of lockdown that I couldn't potty train my kid. I'm sorry. Lockdown ended when exactly? And what better time to teach your kid how to use the bathroom than when you're all, in the same home 24/7 together? At what point, when is the statute of limitations when irresponsible, lazy parents are going to stop blaming COVID and lockdown for their own negligent, shitty parenting? Let's continue.
And not going to class.
Yeah.
France's son, in his 4 years at Augusta Fells, earned a grade point average of 0.13.
Wow.
He passed 3 classes. But his transcripts show his class rank is 62 out of 120.
The Baltimore school system is so fucked. I mean, this is not news, okay? The Wire just did, well, not just did, but when The Wire was on TV, they did an entire season that focused on the Baltimore City schools and what a disaster they are. But this is just unbelievable. A 0.13, and he's in the middle of his class. So 0.13 higher than Mr. Blutarski in Animal House, who had a grade point average of 0.0. That is shocking. Let's continue.
This means nearly half of his classmates, 58 of them, have a GPA of 0.13 or lower.
He's a
Amazing.
good kid. Like, he didn't deserve that. Where is the mentors? Where is the help for him? I hate that this is happening to my child.
Madam, your child was not showing up to class. He was a truant. Or he was showing up late. Whose fault is that? I'm so sorry that at this stage, there are consequences for certain types of behavior. It should have happened sooner, but it didn't. Oh well. Let's continue.
In your opinion, did the school system fail this child?
Absolutely.
This city school administrator who works inside North Avenue asked not to be identified for fear of retaliation.
That school community failed this student.
This administrator told Fox 45 News city schools failed because it has protocols and interventions set up to help students who are falling behind or have low attendance. In France's son's case, they didn't happen.
I get angry. There's nothing but frustration. We see on the news the crime that occurs, the murders, the shootings. We know that there are high levels of poverty in Baltimore. Things like this are adding to that.
These children are why I do this work.
Dr. Sonia
Oh, boy.
Santelises was school CEO 4 years ago when France's son was a freshman, but she will not interview with Fox 45 News. Instead, we received this 2-page statement, which explains what should happen when a student is chronically absent or failing. The district says students received a letter about their academic status status this past summer, and records can be accessed through the campus portal. When a student is absent, an automated call is placed to the number on file. The statement also said the school conducted recent home visits and the student's parent visited the school. But France says none of that happened.
Oh,
What
boy.
this statement does not address is why France's son was promoted despite failing classes. It doesn't discuss his class rank or the 58 other students with a GPA of 0.13 or lower. But it does say North Avenue is reviewing actions that impacted student outcomes at the school prior to this year.
It took a lot for me to just build the courage to do this. Like,
If you were to talk to this mom, what would you say to her?
You know, I didn't have a hand on this student, but I work for city schools, so he is one of my kids. I would hug her and I would apologize profusely.
and he feels embarrassed, like he feels like a failure. And I'm like, you can't feel like that. And you have to be strong. And you gotta keep fighting. You know, life is about fighting.
Did she ask him why he didn't show up to class? Why he was late so many times? Did that ever come up in conversation?
Things happen, but you got to keep fighting. And he's willing. He's trying. But who would he turn to when the people that's supposed to help him is not? Who do he turn to?
France has pulled her son out of Augusta Fells. He is now enrolled in an accelerated school program at another high school in West Baltimore. She is told if he works hard, he could graduate by 2023. And if you would like to read City Schools' entire two-page statement, we have posted it on our website, foxbaltimore.com. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Now, in fairness, okay, I read an article in The Atlantic that absolutely knocked me for a loop, where professors at Ivy League schools are saying that there are kids who are enrolling in their classes who have never read an entire book. They went to schools, and obviously these are kids who graduate at the top of their classes, the highest SAT scores. Most of them went to private schools or very, very good, like charter schools or magnet schools. And they're saying that these kids they've never read a book in their lives. And there was an interview with a professor of the great books at Columbia. And he said that the students are saying, what do you mean we have to read all these books? Well, of course you have to read all the fucking books. Have you looked at the title of the course? It's about the great books. Of course you have to read books. They have never read an entire book. They have read excerpts, they've read chapters, but they've never read an entire book in high school. What the fuck is going on in school? What is going on? I have to know. How can you be admitted to an Ivy League school and without ever having read an entire book? It is shocking. So, and these are the kids some of whom want to go on to be lawyers. Do you know how much reading is involved in law school? Or if you want to be a doctor, the amount of reading that goes into being a doctor, the amount of memorization. It is a lot. It's a lot. It's a heavy burden. Even if you want to take one of those horseshit gender studies classes, presumably you still have to read. Maybe even, God forbid, a book by Judith Butler. Good luck, making your way through that. But I thought that because that sucked and that was depressing and the state of education in this country is a disgrace, I thought that I would tell a nice story for a change. Now, here is a beautiful story that I missed because I don't watch TikTok. And I don't watch the morning shows, so I didn't know anything about this person. All right, so we're going to start with a little clip from one of these idiot unschooling moms. I will point out that there is a connection, a direct connection between these mothers who are promoting this idea of unschooling and multi-level marketing schemes. A lot of them are MLM Huns. They go on, they talk about unschooling, and they use these videos to recruit a downline. So let's take a look at this, and I promise you that after we're finished listening to this clown, we are going to hear a really, really lovely, lovely, uplifting story. Let's continue.
True. My son cannot read.
My
at
son
age
cannot
6.
read at age 6.
There's never going to be a time in my life where I can say, yeah, my son started reading when he was 5 years old. He's on the Waldorf and Montessori schedule. It's different. But here's the thing about my kid. He's free. He's always been free.
Oh.
And every single day of his life is a blank canvas that he can make whatever art he wants with. Discovery, adventure, art, play, interest.
I gotta.
This is what his day is made up of. There's no conformity. There's
Oh.
no needing to pretend that you're sick in order to get a day off. There's no trends. There's no ahead or behind. There's just being free, exactly the way that you are, free to learn at your own pace. And there are so many inmates that will know so much more than me. Inmates get law degrees, get all kinds of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And there's so many inmates that will say, look, this is just the way that it is. This has been a really good thing for me. Everybody else is doing it. We don't live in a creative world. This is just what it is. But would any of those inmates not trade in all of these things they've gotten used to for a chance at being free, for a chance to feel the sun on their face every single day? That's what all of this is about. Thank you.
So she finally says her son cannot read. We knew that, but thanks, I guess, for admitting it. First off, I have a little bone to pick with the statement he's on the Waldorf and Montessori reading schedule. Full disclosure, I did graduate from a Waldorf school. I was not there for the elementary school years, but I do know that, yes, their reading teaching schedule is a little bit later than public school. They usually start teaching, I believe, around 7 instead of 5 or 6. But they do have a formal reading education. The students are taught to read. They are not just sitting around waiting for it to happen. Montessori schools, on the other hand, at least according to my research, usually start even earlier than public schools, around 4 or 5. I point this out because the attempt to piggyback off of other education systems incorrectly as a means of legitimizing her decisions, once again, points to this cognitive dissonance. She knows deep down, probably very deep down, that her son should be reading, but she's refusing to put his needs over her own belief.
You know, what's funny? I also was 3 years old when I started reading. My parents would read to me, and I learned how to read very early. I was fully literate before I entered kindergarten, and I enrolled in kindergarten when I was a year younger than everyone. So I was 4 years old, and I was fully literate. My writing wasn't great, and of course you get in there and you learn how to do cursive, and that's a whole other thing with the specially lined paper and whatever. But I knew how to read before I enrolled in formal education.
Now, what I really want to focus on is her use of the word free. No, her son cannot read, but he's free to turn every day into a work of art. And all of us who went to school and conform to the demands of society are the inmates.
Mm-hmm.
I know someone who would wholeheartedly disagree with this statement, and you may know him too, Oliver James.
Oliver
The
James.
TikTok star is documenting his journey of teaching himself to read and inspiring the entire internet in the process.
On TikTok, Oliver James is a personal trainer, aspiring motivational speaker.
I'm here to motivate you.
And an open book.
I struggle with reading.
Especially when it comes to books.
34-year-old Oliver James went viral on TikTok in 2022 when he confessed to the internet that he could not read, and he started sharing his journey to literacy. At the time, Oliver was functionally illiterate, meaning he had some basic reading and writing skills, but couldn't manage daily tasks that required much reading. He has several videos on his page talking about things that were difficult for him before he could read, so I'm going to play some clips here.
So y'all know I'm teaching myself to read, and I used to get a lot of anxiety going out to eat because I didn't know how to read menus. I would just get familiar foods if I have to.
So we at the grocery store, had to get some vegetable broth. Now, one of the cool things about learning to read
Hi, Philip.
is these aisle things up here now, you know, like these things right there, right? Them joints right there, right? So you look up at those, and it'll tell you exactly like where the products are in the aisles.
That's true, Coach
That's something I
East.
didn't know. So I'm here at the library right now. I have to go in here to try to get some documents read to me because I don't know how to read them. I need something read to me. Is it possible I can give you like something to read to me?
Oliver James says he never learned how to read as a child and spent his entire adult life finding ways to hide that. Every situation needed a strategy. From job applications,
I got bad eyes. Can you help me fill this out? Pay him $20. Like, you find ways.
a fast food menu,
If you went in before me and you're like, can I get a number 1 with no ketchup? Then I would order that way.
even dating.
My friends used to text for me. When I remember that. That was hard.
So we have ordering familiar foods or ordering the same thing as someone else because he couldn't read the menu, being unable to find the aisle or the product he needed in a grocery store, having friends text for him, asking librarians to read him documents. Does that sound like freedom to you? No.
Of course
no,
not.
it doesn't.
Of course not. I used to tutor kids when I took a year off between my freshman and sophomore years at Brown. And I ran into a lot of kids, and it was a special program for kids who had committed like petty crimes, you know, nothing serious, nothing involving a weapon or violence or anything, you know, shoplifting or being a nuisance in public, you know, things like that. And a lot of those kids were illiterate. And I have always held to the notion that illiteracy is one of the most rampant and sad forms of slavery that exists. You are so dependent on other people. You have to fully trust other people not to cheat you, not to lie to you, not to steal from you. And you're wholly dependent as an adult on other people to do things for you because nobody ever taught you properly how to read. And you're not taught the love of reading at an early age, or at any age for that matter. So the fact that this guy woke up, it doesn't matter if he was 34, it makes no difference. At least at some point it clicked and he realized, holy shit, what am I doing? What am I doing? And he decided to improve his life, and I love that. Let's continue.
The definition of freedom is the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. What is more of a hindrance than lacking the language that will let you act, speak, and think as you want? But we're the inmates, right?
Right.
Yeah, speaking of inmates, I misplaced the exact video where Oliver discusses this, but on his page, he does tell us that he was incarcerated several years ago for, I believe, trafficking firearms, and talks about how part of the reason he was arrested is because he couldn't read and didn't know what he did was a crime. Even while being processed in jail, he couldn't understand his paperwork and didn't even know why he was there in the first place. For that reason, I think it's just so nasty to call people who are taught to read inmates when there's a strong connection between illiteracy and incarceration.
That's absolutely true.
Some studies show that 70% of incarcerated people can't read above a 4th grade level.
70%.
And literate inmates had a 16% chance of returning to prison, whereas the illiterate inmates had a 70% chance. And that is huge, clearly. Yeah, so I bet your kid's gonna really appreciate these days of freedom when he's behind bars. Like, actually think about that for a second.
Just as important as the literal effects of illiteracy are the emotional effects. Here are some clips from Oliver's most viewed TikTok.
I'm sorry. I'm learning how to read, y'all. It's either this or I turn off the camera and just be angry and don't learn. Because regardless, this is why people give up. When you see an adult and they be like, why you never learn? Like, because this is what they would have to go through. I don't know if they'll go through it like me, but I'm going to tell you something. If you don't know how to read and you're an adult and you're going to start learning how to read, you will not get through this without any vulnerability, bro. Like, you don't. I'm supposed to know this! I'm supposed to know this shit already!
You know, the other day, I went to visit Negs at the store, and I noticed that in the window there was a t-shirt. And I took one look at it, and I said, I need that. I need that shirt. It was, for those of you who read Charlotte's Web, you remember that there's a point in the story where Charlotte weaves a web, and in the middle of the web, she writes the words "some pig" about Wilbur, because she was always defending Wilbur. And the animals in the barnyard defended Charlotte. Charlotte was like the mother figure. The spider was the mother figure. And it was a t-shirt of Charlotte, of Wilbur looking up at the web, and it was a web, and it said "some teacher." And I took one look at it, and I actually had tears in my eyes looking at that. Because there are a couple of books from childhood that stuck with me all these years, decades, over 50 years, they stuck with me. And Charlotte's Web is one of those stories. It was actually one of those books that was deemed too violent for children. It was deemed to be too shocking and too blunt for children, because there's death in the story. The first line of the book is Fern, who is the little girl who takes Wilbur on. Wilbur is the runt of the litter, the smallest piglet. And the first line of the book is, "Where's Pa going with that axe?" That's the first line of a children's book. Where Pa was going was to kill Wilbur because he was the runt of the litter. So she goes out, she saves him, she feeds him, she raises him, and then the rest of the story is about the relationship that Wilbur builds with the other animals in the barnyard. And eventually, the very loving and close relationship that he builds with Charlotte, who is like a mother figure to him and guides him. It's a beautiful story, and I think that it's sad. And then, of course, there's death in the book, just as there's death in real life. You know, the cycle of nature. It's a beautiful story about the cycle of nature, about love, about selfless love. And when I saw that T-shirt, I said, "That's mine. I'm taking it. I have to," because Charlotte's Web is such a beautiful story. And when I saw this man crying because he was reading Charlotte's Web for the first time, I would love to know what impressions he took away of that story. Because if I have never forgotten it after reading it at the age of, 5 or 6, I can't imagine what a 34-year-old man would have to say about it, and about the lessons it teaches, and about the values that it imparts. It's a beautiful story. E.B. White was a beautiful, beautiful writer. Between that and Stuart Little and The Trumpet of the Swan and the other books that he wrote, my childhood was basically defined by E.B. White and by Roald Dahl, with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator and James and the Giant Peach and those books. So good for him. I love this story so much.
Let's go. You learning. You learning how to read. You learning. That's what it is. Let's go. Let's go. I'm supposed to know this stuff, yo. I'm supposed to already know how to read. I'm supposed to get this. Let's go.
So I am woman
Yes, she
enough
did.
to admit that I cried.
So did I.
Watching this
So
for
did
the first
I.
time.
Me too.
And second time.
Me too.
What's so affecting about Oliver's videos is just how open he is about the profound shame illiteracy has caused him. But
Yeah.
so is the joy of finishing a new book or finally understanding a grocery aisle sign. Like I simply cannot fathom how any parent could come across his page, see his struggle, and think, yeah, I'll risk it.
Yeah.
I will do nothing to prevent that from happening
Right.
to my own child. For any hardcore unschoolers still watching this, do you really believe that Oliver was simply not ready to read until he was 34?
Right.
Isn't it obvious that reading ability did not just naturally manifest in him, and that he's clearly working hard to learn?
Yeah, exactly. I love that Oliver James story. I swear to God, hi Gypsy, I have been waiting for months to find a positive story that comes from fucking TikTok, and finally one crossed the transom. I am so relieved. All that I see is scamming, lying, money grubbing, scheming, grifts, and all of that, ways to tweak the algorithm, consumerism, bad values. And then I see this guy and I think, my God, I cannot believe I didn't know this guy's story. It's amazing. It's like a diamond in the rough. So Oliver James, you are fantastic, and I'm really proud of you for not giving up and for realizing how important literacy is. Okay, this is how we're going to close out. As you know, I fell down a DIY and interior design rabbit hole, so I found something that can make us all upset. And I thought we'd get a kick out of it. This is not a new story. This happened 7 months ago, but I thought that we would all be able to relate to it because it's hilarious. It's just a disaster, okay? So it's presented by Marky. You know that I love me some Marky. It's a couple. They're TikTok house flippers, okay? And they do all the renovation themselves. 7 months ago, they created a massive, massive stink, okay? And for good reason, and we're about to see why. So let's take a look at this mess, because I swear to God, every time I see this, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. All right, let's watch.
Right, so previously on this channel, we have covered some DIY drama, but the one we're going to be talking about today is slightly different. Because the last piece of DIY drama we spoke about was all about, like, plagiarism, right? And one creator was saying that another creator was stealing her style. And even though we are still going to be talking about people that do DIY home improvements, and I put that in quotation marks for a very specific reason that we will get into, but even though that is the case, this one's a bit different because today we're going to be talking about house flippers. And it's by this TikTok account here with about 800,000 followers called Florida Flipsters. Two very specific things I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't like, you know, people from Florida and people who flip houses. Now, if you are from Florida and you're watching this video, I do just want to apologize for that joke. I haven't even been to America, haven't met anyone from Florida. I'm just being a sheep. I apologize. But this page in particular is about a couple, I believe, who basically flip things for profit, and it's not just houses. In fact, this new piece of drama involving this house is actually the first house they've tried to flip. I believe originally it was more about furniture, right? They'd buy secondhand furniture and then make it come back to life, as they would say, and then sell it on. But before we get any further with the video, I do just want to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. It's no secret at this point that internet safety is very get back into it. But like I mentioned, they've recently decided to go into house flipping, and they purchased this house, which is apparently a 1970s home.
We just bought a 1970s fixer-upper, so come on in and let us give you a tour. This home does need a lot of work, and because of that, it scared off a lot of buyers, but we were able to get it for...
I'm sorry, but I mean, just in that basic sweep of the home, I don't see why it needs a lot of work. I'm not seeing it, but maybe we'll be educated as the video continues. But I do want you all to take a good look at that fireplace. Take a good look at that fireplace. It is a stone fireplace. Let's continue.
For a great deal.
I mean, the first thing that sticks out to me straight away is that this home actually looks really nice. I mean, I'm not exactly a professional when it comes to homes, but just looking at it, like, the kitchen looks really nice. It's got this massive island in the middle.
Yeah.
And this fireplace that becomes a very specific part of this story looks incredible, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and when
beautiful.
it comes to older homes, there's a lot of people who have a problem with these house flippers who will take an older home and completely modernize it and take the character away from it.
From that epic stone fireplace to this extremely private backyard, we just felt like it had so much charm and just needed a little bit of love. The home itself is just over 2,000 square feet.
So when the Florida Flipsters were posting this video, there was already a lot of people who were slightly concerned because they're like, oh, they're just going to modernize it and ruin the home. But throughout these videos, the Florida Flipsters made it...
Lilith, the fireplace is the star of the show, okay? The fireplace is stunning. I have never walked into a home that was that modern, that was built only a few decades ago, that had a fireplace that looked like that. That is the most unique fireplace I have ever seen, certainly in a Florida home, but in an American home that is not like a stately manor type of home. It's magnificent, and I love it. I absolutely love it. But We're going to see what happens.
It's very clear that they weren't going to do this and they wanted to keep like the 1970s charm. I mean, it looks like a really nice home. So when she says at the beginning of the video that it's going to need a lot of work, I'm kind of struggling to see that because I've seen videos of houses that definitely did need a lot of work, and this doesn't really seem to be one of them. But either way, they then started this video series where they were doing improvements to the home. A lot of these improvements actually had quite a positive response at first. Like they got rid of like the popcorn ceilings, I believe it's called. But that was up until a week ago when the Florida Flipsters posted a video trying to improve the fireplace.
Yeah, the popcorn ceilings have got to go. All right. There are certain things that need to go right away. Popcorn ceilings were very, very popular in the 1970s because it's an easy way to cover up cracks in the ceiling and other stuff, but they're very, very dated. Okay. So, but they're very easy to get rid of, though. It's not that hard. You just find a contractor, you scrape the stuff off the ceiling, and that's it. But let's continue.
Now, I am going to warn you in advance because what we are about to watch is a bit of a massacre.
Today we are taking this fireplace from Hobbit core to cottage core. Now, a lot of you suggested that we should just clean the stones and it would brighten it. However, these stones have very large dark grout lines that just look dirty even after a good scrub. So we're going to be trying the German smear technique.
Okay, so I feel like it's important to show you what the German smear technique is before we get into this, so you can see like what the expectations are versus the reality. Okay, so here we have the German smear technique, and one thing you will notice throughout these pictures is that it all seems to be on brick. Like the
on brick. It is on brick. It is not on stone. It is on brick. Let's continue.
The vast majority of these seem to be on brick. And to be honest, it's not really my preference. I don't think it particularly looks too good, but I mean, each
I don't
their
like
own,
it either.
especially when they're doing it to this fireplace, which first of all, isn't brick, but second of all, already looks so good. And yeah, I get it. You might want to clean it up and make it look better. And I'm sure there's much better ways of doing it than what they're about to do. But either way, what they're about to do doesn't really look anything like the pictures I just shown.
So in my personal opinion, I think this is actually a timeless look that gives the fireplace an almost old world feel.
No.
Let me just say that this was a true trust the process project for us, as it was looking a bit scary before we started smoothing out the grout lines with a sponge. It took us multiple hours, but after finessing, it finally started to give us the look that matched our inspiration photos. We are planning on doing a warm, lighter oak style.
What inspiration photos? What inspiration photos? Did you all find a magnificent old stone fireplace that had been desecrated in this manner? Because if you're talking about a brick wall, and it didn't look good, by the way. It didn't look good. The German smear technique did not look good on that brick wall, but you're going to do it to this magnificent, gorgeous fireplace. Shame on you.
Flooring.
I mean, look, I am trying to trust the process, but I'm really struggling to see where this is going. And I think one very important thing to note here is that this obviously isn't their home that they're going to be living in. They do obviously own the home, but they are planning on flipping the home eventually. Like, if this was their home that they were going to be living in, I think it'd be a bit of a different story, even though people would still definitely be disappointed because it is an older home, and people want these homes to keep their character and don't like it when people try and, like, modern.
But see, that's the thing. I mean, a house flipper is presumably making these changes in order to sell the home. Let me tell you something. If I walked into a house, okay, and the first thing that I saw, because obviously the fireplace is the star of the show, your eye is immediately drawn to it when you walk into the living room. And it's an open concept. If I were to look at that fireplace and I were to see this hack job that they did on it, I would turn around and walk out. How many people are going to want to make an offer on a house like that after seeing what was done to that fireplace? And I don't know how easy it is to reverse that process. I don't know what you would have to do to remove all that garbage from the fireplace. But it broke my heart when I saw it. It broke my heart because it's such a gorgeous, beautiful feature. Let's continue.
It in a way.
Lots of brushed brass lighting, so I felt like the right move was to lighten up this fireplace. We do still need to complete the look by finding a nice chunky wood mantle and of course replacing
right, so here we have...
What is wrong with the fucking sconces, may I ask? What is wrong with the sconces? The sconces are fine. Yeah, you'd have to break up all the grout. Can you imagine? All right.
The finished product, and I don't mean to be mean, but I actually don't even
Thank
know
you,
what to
Charlotte.
say about this. I mean, there might be some people out there that think this looks good, but I genuinely think they have
I hate it.
ruined this, like completely ruined
Horrible.
it. And I think it's something that isn't reversible too. Like, this is actually how it's going to stay, and I do think it is a big shame because I genuinely think they've ruined something that was such a nice part of the home. So as you can imagine, the comments that were originally on this video, because they have now been turned off, were pretty negative, and people were disappointed at what's been.
Gee, I wonder why they turned the comments off. And the thing is that this is not just rage bait. I mean, normally with rage bait, there's nothing at stake, right? You just want people to watch your videos so that you can make money on the algorithm. You know, using the algorithm to, you know, launch your video into, you know, in front of more eyeballs. These people flip houses for a living, okay? These people do this professionally. So if your entire audience is telling you that you made a huge mistake with the fireplace, why would you want to block that out if presumably you're going to sell the house? And this will probably be the reaction from 99% of the people who walk into the house who may have had some interest in buying it, but were turned off by the so-called improvements you made. Because we're not done with the improvements, okay? We're not fucking done. Let's continue.
Done here. To which the Florida Flipsters uploaded a new video kind of briefly talking about the situation with the fireplace and said they were going to redeem themselves. And by this, they meant they were going to do a different home improvement that, again, a lot of people aren't a big fan of.
Never in my life did I think a fireplace DIY would trigger the internet so much that the app would have to turn on anti-bullying mode, but moving on because we have an exciting update. This vaulted ceiling was just begging for a beam, and today we are finally installing one. Due to the size.
Okay, so it's a vaulted ceiling. It's a vaulted ceiling. Now, you know, I love me some vaulted ceilings, and I love wooden beams. I love wooden beams, and it breaks my heart when people remove wooden beams, like what Kim Kardashian and Kanye West did in that sterile Gattaca-type home that they remodeled. But adding a beam is a different story. Now, that is a very random addition, but you don't know the half of it, okay? You don't know the half of it. It's much worse than what we're seeing, and let's see how.
Size of the beam needed, we knew we'd have to find a faux beam for us to physically be able to have the strength to lift. We found these vintage style wood beams made from foam from a company called Outwater, which ended up being the perfect
Foam. It is not a wooden beam. It is a foam chunk painted to look like wood. It's foam. They're putting up a foam beam in a vaulted ceiling that was minding its own business, being magnificent and vaulted. And for absolutely no reason, they are putting up a foam beam. Reminder, this is Florida. They're putting up a foam beam in a Florida home. Florida, what do we know Florida for? Rain, humidity, moisture, heat. Why wouldn't you put a wooden beam up? If you're going to put a beam up and you want to make it look like wood, why not put up a fucking wooden beam?
I just heard they're putting this, like, wooden beam in the middle that isn't wood, it's foam, which I'm sure there probably is some, like, good versions of, but when they show a close-up of this, it really doesn't look like wood at all. I mean, when you look at this freeze frame right here...
Look at that. Look at that. That looks about as much like wood as a bûche de Noël looks like a log. Look at that thing. That's what they put up in the vaulted ceiling. But why, though? Why are we painting a rectangle of foam to look like wood when we could just put fucking wood up in the never mind. Okay.
it doesn't look great, right? But then as this video carries on, they go on to do something which, again, a lot of people were mad about.
It was just long enough that we had to use the second beam, but luckily they have these rubber straps to hide the seams
rubber
and to make
straps.
it all look cohesive.
Oh, that looks so cohesive. Putting rubber straps around a foam fucking beam in a vaulted ceiling. All right.
We wanted a mid-century kind of funky light to keep in the 70s spirit for the space, and I am so obsessed with the one we ended up choosing.
Okay, I don't have a problem with the light. Okay? Why would you run electricity through a piece of foam in... I don't even know what to say. In what world is this a good idea? They took a 1970s home that was perfectly okay, probably just needed a few tweaks. That's it. And they did this to it. And they had to turn their comments off. I can't imagine why.
I mean, right, a few things I want to say about this. Again, I'm not a professional by any means. I've never done anything like this, like renovating a home, right? But that is a very bizarre placement for a light.
It is.
But apart from just the aesthetic of it, the safety behind that, I'm pretty sure would be a problem. Like, they have just stuck like an electric light to this form, which first of all, I can't imagine being the most stable thing in the world.
No!
It is just a thin piece of form at the end the day. But also I'm pretty sure that would be a bit of a fire hazard, to say the least. And again, this is a home that they're planning to flip. So if you are planning on selling this home and you have something that could be a fire hazard, and on top of that could be unsafe for other reasons, because I don't know how stable this is, I mean, that is a big problem, right? The fireplace is one thing, that is more just a preference, I guess, a preference that most people seem to dislike, but that is more just like an aesthetic thing, whereas this could actually be unsafe. Now at this point, because people were so disappointed in these videos, they started looking back at all the videos from the Florida Flipsters, and they found this other video where they're renovating their own home, the one they're actually living in. And the reason why people picked out this video in particular is because when they're actually changing the style of their ceiling, they mentioned that there's mold, and instead of like fixing the mold, or at least in the video, they have now came out and said that they did get it sorted. But in the original video, it seems like they just ignore the fact that there's mold on the ceiling and instead just cover it over.
Yesterday, you saw us tear open the ceiling on our front sunroom, and we discovered the original beadboard, which was this beautiful green color that almost everyone thought we should save, and we agreed until we saw that it had potential mold and just holes that were too hard to patch.
Okay.
So instead, we are gonna go all natural, baby, and honestly, we kind of were leaning towards wanting a natural wood ceiling in the first place, so we went and bought some new beadboard that we stained early American and cut to size. Probably wondering how on earth the two of us are gonna get this on the ceiling, and
yeah, so
okay, so they just stuck it to the ceiling with the mold in it. Whatever. I mean, it's their home. You want to live in a moldy home? That's up to you. I just hope that you're very, very forthcoming if you ever decide to sell this home.
You can see, judging from the video they've posted, it does just seem like they've noticed that there's mold on the ceiling. So instead of keeping this green wood that was originally on the ceiling, they're deciding to now just cover it over, which again would be very unsafe. Now, obviously this is their own home that they're living in, but I assume they're probably not going to live there forever. So this would be a concern for someone else who would potentially buy the home eventually. Yes. So at this point, the people in the comments are more just concerned, thinking, right, they clearly don't seem to really care about safety, and this could be a problem for future buyers. To which the Florida Flipsters have now had to make a follow-up video addressing all of this.
have you been personally impacted by this fireplace makeover?
Yes.
Well, hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm the one that did it, and let's just clear the air. For some reason, people are rehashing this old video where we redid our front porch, and let me just say, this is a totally different home than the fireplace home. This is our personal residence where we currently live and have lived for years. It's our 1920s bungalow you have seen us slowly renovate. I said it back then, but I feel like I have to say it again. Yes, we addressed the mold. We had a professional come by, and it turns out the mold wasn't even toxic.
How is that?
We still removed the portions that were affected for peace of mind.
Yeah, so a few things in a statement. She says that they did remove the mold, which is obviously the right thing to do. Obviously, there's a lot of people who don't seem to believe that because it wasn't mentioned in the original video. So there is a lot of people who seem to either have the belief that she is now just saying this because it was mentioned in the comments, although she just showed a clip of someone actually removing pieces off the ceiling in this video. Obviously, there's no way for me to tell if that is all the mold removed because I'm not there, but I feel like I believe her, but again, I don't know 100%. I did also see people mention the fact that she says that apparently the mold wasn't toxic, and people were confused by this, but I'm not exactly a professional when it comes to mold, so I don't really know. But as you can see by the top comment on this video, it literally says the mold wasn't toxic. And then there's people replying to this comment saying, yeah, I thought the same thing. A quick, easy Google search would tell you that there is no such thing as non-toxic mold.
It is totally okay if you absolutely hate our design decisions.
I do.
Design is subjective. However, a large majority did say that we should try the German smear technique, so clearly not everyone liked the original fireplace.
I mean, yeah, fair enough if most people said that they wanted this originally, although that picture, like, that is shown for inspiration looks very different to what actually happened. But yeah, I guess this is a subjective choice, right? Some people might actually like it. I just feel like the vast majority of people don't. And also, I think a lot of the comments were based on people who are very, like, protective over stuff that is a bit older, especially with homes, where people want to keep the character off the design, and then when people go and change that, people do tend to have a problem with it.
Stones that we removed on the floor were 100% decorative. I don't think people realize this is a propane gas fireplace and not wood burning, so no fire hazard. Also, we are not the first people to install a light on a faux or foam beam. There are plenty of examples online.
Yeah, so that's all they really have to say about the whole, like, light on the foam. They just say that there's other people have done it, which doesn't really answer the questions and the concerns over the safety of it. It just says, like, oh, other people have done it, so it should be fine. I think it would be interesting to hear the opinion of a professional, because obviously I'm not one, right? I'm just assuming that that probably would be quite unsafe for many different reasons, but it would be interesting to hear the opinion of a professional, see what they think.
Now, if you just hate house flippers in general, I get that and there's nothing I can change, but just know that this house was listed as a cash-only property for investors, so unfortunately it was not going to be bought by a first-time homeowner either way. I truly hope this sheds a little bit of light on the situation.
No.
The internet can be a scary place sometimes, and we had some pretty crazy hateful messages this past week, especially with our integrity in question. So now can we please move forward and just continue working on this house?
Okay, so that was their response to all the comments that have been happening this week. This was only posted 12 hours ago, and the response in the comments still isn't exactly great. I don't think it's a German smear that was the issue. It was how it was done. But you didn't do a German smear. You did, I don't even know. People are mad that some buyer is going to get stuck with all the bad choices you made renovating this home. Something to consider, you're flipping a house to sell it. That means that someone has to like it.
Right.
If the vast majority of your viewers don't like the appearance of it, it might be a bad idea. And yeah, I think that is actually a pretty good comment, right? The vast majority of the comments that I did see weren't hateful. It was just more people saying like that this is a really bad design choice, specifically with like the fireplace and like the foam beam. And yeah, if it is their plan to flip the home, which is what they've said they're gonna do, that should probably be a bit of a concern that the majority, and in fact all of the people I've really seen, I haven't seen barely any comments of people saying that they do like it. Like the vast majority of people don't seem to like it, and I think that is good to have comments on it so you can kind of get a gauge of what people like. Obviously, if people are being overly hateful and sending like disgusting messages, that is bang out of order. I say that in all my videos, but it's always true. The tutti roll on the ceiling is a crime. Vile. If you're going to flip, at least give the house a blank slate. Instead, you're creating a lot of work for the next owner and ruining character.
Correct.
I mean, yeah, literally every comment I can see is criticizing the design choices. I would love to know your opinions in the comment section down below on everything that we spoke about. Also, if there is any professionals in the comments, I would love to hear the opinions specifically on the...
You know, what's sad is that that house also had what they called a studio, which is basically a sunroom. And when they went into it, there was a magnificent, gorgeous, mid-century modern shelf. Absolutely stunning. And they decided that they were going to remove it. This beautiful, it was in great shape too. Great shape. They removed it from the wall of what that room is, and they put it in the garage, and people were just shook by this decision. Like, how could you take such a gorgeous piece of furniture and move it out of a place where it clearly belongs and move it into the garage to put what, tools and nails and soldering stuff and caulking and on this beautiful, I mean, they could have taken that shelf and they could have sold it on eBay and they would have done very, very well, trust me. But they stuffed it in the garage, and then they put up this hideous mural with the name of the town on it, which looked sort of like one of those paintings that you see at beachside like fish and crab shacks, you know? And they're like, well, it's meant to be a studio, so we put some artwork up. Well, if an artist is going to use that studio, wouldn't they want to put their own artwork up? Why are you doing this? I don't know. I love mid-century modern furniture, and that bookshelf was stunning. Stunning. Whatever. As if Florida didn't have enough problems between the hurricanes, the insurance rates, the high deductibles, the high home prices, the HOAs, the rip-off contractors, and now you've got these flippers. I don't even know if these people are actual contractors. I don't know if they learned how to do this off of TikTok or YouTube, and that they're just flying by the seat of their pants. But they don't strike me as trained professional contractors. And that is really, really scary, because when you buy a house that's being flipped and the person that is flipping it is the one who did the renovations, you never know what you're going to get, you know? And these two, no. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. All right. Yeah, well, Lilith, it looks like a greenhouse. The sunroom looks like a greenhouse, and it's beautiful, and it's got those windows, and it's got that ceiling, and it's got it's beautiful. And they stuck that tacky sort of quasi-mural in it, and it's awful. It's just really tasteless. And again, if I were a buyer, I would walk in, I would take a look at that and say, that's got to go. That's going to get painted over. That's going to be the first thing that gets painted over in the house. I don't want this, okay? All right, you guys. I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you so much. I will be back, I hope, tomorrow, if I can find something to talk about. And until then, thank you to the new members. Thanks, everyone, for being here. And I will see you all the next time.